6 o'clock on October 30th, 2025. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there someone who'd like to lead it?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any changes to the order of agenda? Pretty short. Not necessarily short.
Short agenda.
Right, short looking. Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. So remember, if you have 3 minutes for public comment, it's not the place for dialogue. Please refrain from any attacks. And remember that that public comment is in the public, but not of the public.
You mean the select board meetings are in the
Select board
public,
meetings, yes.
but they're not
Right.
meetings of the public, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Heidi.
Thank you. Good meeting. Good evening. Good evening, members of the Select Board. My name is Heidi Duto, and I'm a resident and taxpayer here in Hartford. I'm here tonight because I am deeply disappointed and frankly outraged by the lack of the accountability and transparency I've seen from town leadership, including the town manager and the chief of police, and even some of the members of this board. This isn't about playing the blame game, it's about responsibility. Residents have come forward with legitimate, serious concerns, and instead of being heard, we've been dismissed, criticized, and made to feel like the problem. That's not leadership, that's avoidance. When people in positions of power ignore or minimize community concerns, they don't just fail individuals, they fail the entire town. Trust has been broken, and it cannot be repaired through empty statements or closed door decisions. It requires real action, transparency, and the courage to admit when something has gone wrong. Many of us no longer have confidence in the town manager or the police department leadership. The culture of deflection and silence has gone on for far too long. Some of the high-ranking officers have been under poor leadership for years, and it shows. If this town truly values integrity, it's time to take a hard look at who is leading and whether they are still fit to serve this community. We, the residents, are demanding that you take this matter seriously and act decisively. Stop protecting positions and start protecting people. We deserve accountability, honesty, and a government that serves its citizens, not itself. So shame on Connie and John for doing just that. Thank you for allowing me to speak and having this time with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Heidi. Is there anybody online? No. Okay, we will close public comment and open select board comments and announcements. Eric, do you have any?
None for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Amanda? No, none for me.
No comments.
Mike?
Around this time every year, I like to point out a couple of literary anniversaries that I think we should all keep in mind. The 25th of October was the 610th anniversary of the Battle of Agincourt, which inspired Shakespeare's play Henry V. Tomorrow is not only Halloween, it's the birth date of John Keats, whose poem To Autumn is one of the finest poems written in English and is very appropriate for this time of the season. So I hope everyone gets a chance to take a look at it.
All right, Tim?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, and Ashley?
Nothing to report.
And I believe 40 Days Parade is tomorrow.
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay.
Oh, do we have, maybe John knows this, what the official trick or treat hours are in Hartford?
Oh, I don't know that. Nobody has invested that authority in me to determine those hours.
No, trick or treat, like trick or treating. I
Okay.
think it's usually on Halloween evening. So tomorrow evening, trick or treating will be happening amongst the community. But the trunk or treat event,
Right,
which is facilitated by Parks and Rec, is on Saturday
right.
at I believe 6 p.m.
Except the
I'm sorry.
volunteers had it wrong. They put November 1st, Sunday.
Oh, yeah, no, it's on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. but
Okay.
Yeah, it was
And
today.
sorry,
I
it ends at
noticed.
6 p.m. I believe it starts at 3 or 4 p.m.
And it's a good reminder to people to be careful when they're driving.
Yes, look out for trick or treaters.
Mhm.
And we changed time this weekend.
Yes.
Yes, all
Yes.
that.
Saturday night, about 3 a.m, Sunday morning.
And change your smoke detector batteries.
Okay. All right. Thank you
You
very
checked all the
much,
boxes.
Scott.
No more plugs.
Yes.
Okay, so tonight we're working on a budget. So we are starting with FY 27 budget presentation on fire department first.
Excellent. Could I be made a presenter?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Here you go.
Well, that's coming up. I did notice the last meeting, the sound was quite muted and quite quiet. I don't know how we know that or whether anybody who happens to be listening right now. But I did notice in watching the last meeting that all of our sound and speaker sounds, from my perspective, were quite hard to distinguish and hear. So just an FYI.
I know Nick has checked on the sound levels of this mic before, right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm ready to begin. So the FY 27 budget for the Hartford Fire Department is account number 221 in your budget books. And I believe the fire department starts off on page 21 in your budget book. I always like to start with talking about what the fire department is and the mission the agency has developed through the accreditation process and was just renewed back in 2024. So our mission is to provide the highest levels of community safety, prevention, and emergency response services. We developed a vision to be a regional emergency service leader in support of our changing community through innovative practices, partnerships that result in a comprehensive set of programming that we design to serve the community. And then also our agency core values for the organization. And we do a lot of collaboration in staff with staff as a group in budget development. Obviously salaries and benefits and those kind of things are kind of fixed expenses within the budget. But when designing the budget, we involve from the shift level up, kind of from the bottom up on ideas, and then collaborate during staff meetings to develop our priorities for the fiscal year. The next is the picture of the organizational chart of the organization. We have 30 full-time members of the department, and then 6 part-time in some fashion. 2 regular part-time, that would be the part-time deputy fire marshal, and then the part-time community nurse. And then we have irregular part-time employees, which are our call firefighters, which work in the agency. They're scheduled for about 24 hours a month to ride and supplement the firefighters that are working on duty. Then we also have an administrative assistant within the fire department that services me and the rest of the staff. She also is our billing clerk representative that handles all the ambulance billing and revenue that is received through the agency. The fire marshal's office enforces the state fire code through an MOU we have with the Department of Public Safety. And then I have a deputy chief of operations and training that services all the rotating shifts and staff and their certifications that they need to maintain. And then the core of the department is the operating shifts. There are 6 there's 6 members on 4 shifts that work 24-hour periods within the agency, servicing now out of 2 fire stations, one here in White River Junction and the second one on Willard Road in Quechee, where you have 2 staffed. The next slide just talks about, it's about 22 years of call volume in this community, just kind of spread out. We add another column every year. Just to indicate what's transpiring as far as calls for service within the community. Now here in this graph, we're only showing it kind of in two ways. Obviously, the largest column represents the total call volume for emergency 911 calls we're responding to. Then you have the blue line, which are EMS calls. So that's any call that an ambulance is rolling to that's servicing a medical emergency. And that represents about 70% of what we're doing as far as emergency calls. And then fire isn't really fire. It's fire department responses that are not EMS related. So that's what that column represents. Now there's more, we keep track of every single call we go on. There's an aggregate list so you can see exactly what kind of emergencies we're going to, but this just gives you a broad idea of the types of responses that are occurring. We also, as part of our accreditation process, developed a strategic plan as an agency, and we tried to review and look at that and implement some of those ideas within this fiscal budget. They revolve around comprehensive and effective training programs, distribution and clarity of delivering information to the community, developing and maintain a recruitment and retention program within the agency, improving mental health and fitness for members of the department that negatively impact their career, and then improving our fire prevention division as well, and the delivery of those services to the community. All right, the nuts and bolts. First of all, we'll talk about wages. We are paying salaries to 30 full-time employees, as I said, and 6 part-time. In this budget, we're talking about increasing the community nurses' hours from 25 to 32. We're supporting the negotiated wages for both bargaining units that are represented in the fire department. That's the clericals and the firefighters, and then the non-union employees, as well as holiday pay and overtime. Now, I do want to call your attention to the increase is only 32,000, and there's a reason for that. Typically, you would have seen higher increases in the fire department line in every given year. That's for 2 reasons. It's lower. The first is we had a 30-year employee retire and is enjoying retirement, which brought in lesser paid individuals to fill those roles. And the second is an error I made when in calculating the vacancy that was going to be created by the retirement. We ended up over budgeting in the firefighter salary line. So the correction over last year to this year is going to be reflected in a less in that salary line. So $30,000 increase in salaries. Next slide shows the increase in benefits of health insurance, the health reimbursement account, dental insurance, and then their other coverages, looking at an increase of 49,000. In the benefits balance, we see total of, for the overall budget, you're seeing an increase of $106,299. That's made up of salaries, benefits, a reduction in retirees, as we had retirees move from a more expensive plan to a less expensive plan due to age, and then workers' comp, and then retirement programs. And we support both. We have members in both Group C and D and ICMA in retirement. Some highlights that have been pulled from the actual budget book just to talk about. A technical rescue course for 18,000. That's one, supporting our strategic plan, and 2, we've changed the average age of the firefighters within the organization. It's been reducing due to new hires and new people coming on board. So some of the core technical rescue disciplines are a requirement we put on our staff to be prepared for those types of emergencies. So we're bringing in an outside instructor agency to provide confined space and high angle rope rescue in this budget. The second one is a station management software data conversion. We've been using a product called Red NMX, which is a station management software. It does our incident reporting, truck checks, vehicle maintenance, all those kind of things. It is an aging program. We are looking at a more inclusive program that right now we have to outsource to about 4 different vendors to get a comprehensive product that we can use for all emergencies. this program that we're looking at right now brings all of those together into one package. We have not gone to RFP. We have not started that process yet, but we intend to pursue a change in software management at the fire department, and that's the estimate we have to date. Portable radios is a reoccurring item. You'll see budget year to budget year. Portable radios are relatively expensive, $5,000 to $10,000 per device. So to keep a running tally, we buy 3 or 4 per year and move them throughout the agency. And then for our fleet of vehicles, we've budgeted for apparatus, tire replacements, and some paint repairs. We also budget to replace the mobile data terminals that are inside the response units. So this is where it gives them the mapping and all that stuff to respond to your homes. And then I put in a maintenance piece. Now that Station 2 is up and running, and Station 1 now has HVAC within it as well. On the second floor, we've estimated contracts to have an outside vendor service the HVAC heat pump units semi-annually in the building. So that's new to the budget. PPE replacement is in there. That's firefighters turnout gear, that's swiftwater rescue equipment as needed. And then as we create new hires, typically we purchase personal protective equipment as a whole through the reserve account. But when we do that on a 5-year basis, we do a large purchase to outfit all the staff. This money is in there to handle the people who are hired intermittently throughout those cycles. And then a storage shed for the mechanic is in there as a new item this year. As you can imagine, he's servicing all the fire department and all the police department fleet. We have to have a place to put all the tires, the oil, the filters, and all that equipment. Right now, we're using an old, dilapidated trailer that we had taken out of service. And this is to stick build on a concrete pad behind the maintenance bay. And then finally, in the EMS budget, we're looking to replace our laryngoscopes. Our video laryngoscopes have aged out, and we're replacing it with a new product for $12,000. We're also looking to transfer to the reserve account. The other night, Tuesday, I was here before you to transfer to purchase a piece of equipment. This is how we do that. We submit to the reserve account has been around for many, many years. There are 3 funds that are supported within the reserve account. That's vehicle replacement, mainly the smaller fleet. SCBA, those are the self-contained breathing apparatus that are in the fire engines and response vehicles. And then PPE, meaning the structural turnout gear that firefighters wear. So those 3 funds are funded there. So we're asking to have that transfer continue. Last year, we reduced it by the vehicle amount to hit our budget goals. So you did not transfer that 133,494 last year, but it's appearing back this year. And then moving to revenue, we collect fees for several different services we provide to the community. The first is monitoring fire alarm and burglar systems for buildings that have the town system installed in them. And usually that's because of a code requirement. So we have that's $250 per device per system reporting to us, and that generates that 40. It's cut off on my screen. An estimated $42,500 in next year. Fire reports are when an attorney or some legal entity requests documentation from investigations or things like that. That's an estimated fee. Fire prevention is a calculation for permit fees. So typically that is $8 per 1,000 of project valuation is what the fee is set for new construction projects within the community. That is a moving target, and the town manager and I have had many discussions on how to estimate that.
Wrestling matches.
It is a wrestling match because we know that development is going to occur within a fiscal year. And here we are all sitting together in almost November, trying to determine how much building is going to happen between July 1st, 2026 and June 30th of 2027, and guesstimate how many fees we're going to collect in that period. Now, for example, we know that that large construction project is going to happen at some point on Sykes Mountain Avenue, and there will be permits filed for every single building that gets built there. The town will collect revenue. But I hesitate to put it in the budget in any given year until it actually happens. So, where it may not offset, it's going to occur at some point and show as a revenue on that line. Relatively significant, probably too, when it does occur. That fire reimbursements is an account that we just is a sweep account for reimbursements that the town receives for different things like grants and things like that. Ambulance services is the biggest revenue line typically. That is a fee for service where we're billing insurance companies for fees or individuals for fees. And then ambulance contracts are those with other communities outside of Hartford. So right now we're servicing contracts to Sharon, Pomfret, and North Hartland have contracts with us for services. And then finally, ambulance reports, very similar to fire. And we estimate revenue in 2027 of $1,078,050. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a question for you, Scott. And someone just talked to me about this the other day, and I don't know where they learned this, but the community nurse, they said right now the community nurse is not taking on any new people, that she has like 12 very difficult, dedicated people. I'm a little bit concerned that even increasing the hours and with the level of difficulty that we're not going to be able to meet a lot of people's needs. And I just, if you could just talk to us about it.
Sure. Now, Katie and Katie, our community nurse, have this conversation quite frequently. And some of that is probably we're going to need to come back to you to find out what your vision is for community nursing within the community, because it is spread. We set our initial age group at 50 plus, and we're finding that we are all over the map with from people, the people that are sometimes the most difficult are in that 50-year-old group that are struggling and with whatever conditions they currently have. And then our focus was very intensive to get people out of those situations. And there was a thought between the both of us that we were losing sight of some of our aging population that we wanted to really focus on. And it is a difficult target to meet because there's so much need. But some of that has to come from you as to how much you want us to direct those services towards. But she does recognize that she is approaching her limit.
Yeah.
And we discussed whether to see you folks and discuss increasing your hours to 32 or change the ask to, should we do another part-timer or things like that. So Katie, I'm confident Katie is already working 32 hours and only being compensated for the 25 that we're paying her. So my thought was to correct her first before adding somebody else. But I'm encouraged to hear your comments on the subject and what you think community nursing might look like in the future.
And it's a relatively new program, of course,
Right.
just out of a pilot stage.
Yeah.
So we're maybe watching to see and gathering the data.
Yeah. Ashley?
Yeah, thank you. As a follow-up to that, I'm curious of like your or the town nurses' perspective on potentially having social workers through like an organization like HCRS as a support through your department and maybe under some of Katie's guidance as well as yours. Yeah, just what your thoughts are on that.
So she does have close working relationships with we're fortunate in Hartford that all the agencies are here for the most part. And she's established a lot of those. She can direct dial. She doesn't have to do typical phone trees with an organization. She knows who to call where most of the time, which is great. So we get through a lot of that. I'd have to ask her specifically if she'd look a cohort that's doing social services. I'd have to ask her that question to see if that would be a greater benefit.
Yeah, just kind of an interesting, as I think about ways to structure our response and offer public safety and address a lot of the needs in the town that, overlap with health, more so than they do with what I think should be like punitive, action.
Sure,
I
and
just- Yeah,
she participates in the situation table and finds that very helpful. In fact, she's asked me, we're meeting with one of my fire captains that handles EMS services for the agency to discuss EMS's presence at some of these situation tables that when we encounter difficult cases to be solved at that. It's a very well-run group and it's very productive in getting case management started on these difficult cases.
and remind me, the situation table is what cohort?
That's
It
the,
is-
that's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you.
It's the successor to Hartstat, where we had the HPD crime data analyst interacting with outreach division, but also social service agencies and other agencies to try to focus on high frequency users of town involvements. Let's put it that way.
And is that a public meeting, or as elected officials can we attend?
I don't think that that's ideal because there's all kinds of privacy rules that are involved. And I think people who participate in the situation table have to sign
We have to do NDAs,
confidentiality so
yeah.
that they can freely share information about named individuals.
Okay.
It's a very regimented process. I think Chief Kelly can speak to it more eloquently than I, because it's run under her agency. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's very productive in finding case resolution. Task force, an item is presented to the group, a situation, they determine if the name is appropriate, they release that name to the group. The social agencies in the room can chime in whether they're relevant to that, and a task force is developed immediately at the
Awesome.
table and assigned that for a resolution. I was impressed.
Thank you. Sorry, I know we veered off a little bit there from your budget.
No, and
but
we
yeah.
do have a lot of overlap because a few years ago, the legislature merged the responsibility of the health officer with the fire marshal's office as well. So we do have concurrent authority to enforce the health code and rental housing. So our fire marshals are involved with that quite a bit, as well as the community nurse, the social worker, and the health officer. So there's quite a lot of collaboration.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief Cooney, for your presentation and for being here tonight. Couple questions. You've preempted most of mine by elaborating on the presentation or the slides with your presentation. Question about the software. What I may have missed the station management software, the $10,000. Is that, what's the model? Is it a subscription model or licensing? Is that something?
Cloud-based. It's a cloud-based subscription modules. Yeah, so basically, the company we're looking at, and I think it's okay for me to say it in public session, but the company we're looking at, it's a company called First Do. They do a collaboration of, well, it's lots of different software packages all merged into one. So it is shift scheduling, it's payroll and overtime, it's incident reporting, it's apparatus checks and maintenance. It is the incident command function. So when we're managing a fire, it's our pre-planning system. It's the same system that the fire inspectors are going to go out and do their reports on iPads and those kind of things.
Cool. Well, maybe one phone number to call for support, right?
Hopefully.
So is the $10,000 then something that we would expect to see in the operation budget each year?
No. So if you wanted to look at the contracted services line of the fire department budget, you're just going to see the names of a whole bunch of different software packages.
Yeah.
You're going to see Red NMX, you're going to see CrewSense, you're going to see Tablet Command, Incident Command Management software. So those items would be merged into that one product. So as it looks to me in the budget, and from what I've seen in their product estimates, the amount is going to stay the same in the budget, less the $10,000 next year for the data conversion. So the software is probably going to cost us the same out of pocket. It's just this year I have a one-time $10,000 data conversion.
Okay, great. That helps me understand. I was just looking to see if there was if we could expect an operational change in operational expenditures based on that. And it sounds like not really, or not.
Yeah, it would just be less the data conversion piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the is it 20 some odd years of call data you have. That's impressive and commendable. I'm glad you guys are tracking that stuff. And I think tonight, I don't think it makes sense to get into that too deeply because you're not seeking to expand expand staff. But in the future, it might be interesting to be a little bit more granular, just understand how those call numbers are translating to how much staff time is required and so on and so forth, if that's possible to get that granular in the future. My math is 0.162 calls per capita in 2010 and 0.222 in 2020 per capita. So I didn't try to come up with the numbers for the interim years, but it's an interesting curve. It's non-linear,
Right.
and I wouldn't expect it to be. So as we sort of crowd more people into a smaller space and densify, we have more issues, collisions and other things, whatever.
Sure.
So,
And the way it's running right now, I ran some numbers this morning because I thought this might come up, that we're already tracking from July 1 to today, an 8% increase over last year already in volume.
Yeah. So sort of it being nonlinear, it would be interesting to see what your thoughts are for the sort of the 1 to 3 year, years 2 and 3.
Yep.
When we talk to you next year, what sort of staffing requirements you might have in mind if you want to touch on that at all.
Sure. And I think I responded
Yes.
to Mary in that question as well, too, because it did come up and the town manager and I have discussed this approach too, on where to start with it, right? Right now, I mentioned we staff to 6, but the reality is we're rarely at 6 due to accrual time, vacation time, and things like that. So I think my first step in that kind of scenario would be to see what our capacity is when we can staff at 6 100% of the time. But to do that, I would recommend our first approach at that would be to do that without hiring people out of the gate, and do it through overtime occurrences, just to see what that balance kind of mix looks like. Just to measure our capacity to do the work and see if 6, because we already have 6 on each shift, to see if 6 is sufficient to provide those services. I think the numbers are out of the 438 days I looked at it, we were only at 6 168 times. So only 39% of the time we're staffed at our normal operating strength. So I think I'd probably want to approach it there first and see what 6 gets us. The trouble is, it'd be nice if I could. I was talking to the chief of dispatch there a minute ago, saying that it'd be nice if we could schedule all our emergency calls, then I can make sure I'm staffed appropriately. But that is not. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't. But and it's funny. That's not funny. But the way things happen is we get slammed all at once, and that happens quite a bit. Where if you get one call, you get the second right on top of it, and then the third call right behind it. And then you may have a 4-hour window where nothing happens. And then you get a cacophony of incidents all over again.
Yeah, I'm realizing when you said in your response, you addressed that in your response to Mary, I knew I read something and then I was going back through and trying to find it. I couldn't find where it was. So now I remember. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And of course, I think most all of the union contracts are coming up in about 2 years' time. That could be a time to talk and try to find some collaborative approach to finding a way to have at least the vacations and outs more conveniently scheduled.
Sure. Yes. I mean, we allow 50% of the on-duty staff to be absent currently. And to do it with overtime today, if you were to say, let's test it now, it would probably be about another $350,000 into the fire department to do it through overtime. But it would probably be the equivalent to hire 4 new people to staff 1 per shift. And I can't tell you what the effect of that would be.
Any other questions for the chief? During that online window. I thank you for this
Okay.
presentation.
You're welcome,
Great.
Chief.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hope you have a quiet night.
You said the Q word.
Yes, the keyword.
Jinxed it.
Randy, no.
Chief Kelly, Miranda has generously offered to be the slide advancer, if that'll help lighten your load a bit.
Sorry, I didn't do it before you started.
Yeah, so far.
Yes.
Kind of wrapped around there.
Evening. So I got right into the meat and potatoes of this. If you want to go, Miranda, to the next slide. Thank you. So, excuse me. It's important to note the budget, it does have your budget guidance was 4%. I tried very hard to come in at that 4%. The difference up there, that $257,640, that's a 5.8% increase. That includes, sure, I'm sorry, I'm very hoarse tonight. So that 257,000, that includes 4 portable radios at 37,600. Those 4 portables are no longer supported by the software company, Motorola. So when there's updates, those radios can't be updated. So they're obsolete radios that need to be replaced. 21 tourniquets. Our tourniquets need to be replaced on an annual basis. They break down under UV rays. And we want them to be effective when we need them. You know, not just for us, but if we respond to a car accident, we get there before the fire department, we can render aid to people. And winter coats. In that 257,000, you'll see later on in the budget presentation, a slide called budget woes. As I went through, when I became chief, as we did our EP cycles, I would take our bills that we would have and match them up to our budget book. I found that we were under budgeted considerably. And that was $34,000 under budgeted. So that's also included in that $257,000, creating that 5.8% increase. I'm good for the next slide, Miranda. Our calls for service. Typically, what I normally do in our budget presentations is just show you what we do for call responses, but I thought it was important to add what we do for traffic stops as well. So the data going back to 2020 covers calls for services and also our traffic stops. If you want a breakdown of the differences between the two, I'm happy to provide those. The last box is only until, can't see, October 20th. So if we stay on the trend, a low trend for calls for service, we'll be at 8,833 calls for service, which we're getting up there for our calls for service. The highest year that we've had is 9,147 calls for service, and that was in 2022. And I'm sorry, with our traffic stops, estimated will probably be close to 10,805 calls for service, including traffic stops. High number without traffic stops could go up to 9,859 calls. The way I figured that is I took the current call for service that we're at, 7,361. It was close to the end of the month. I divided that by 10. And then I came up obviously at 736, multiplied that by 2 for the last 2 months of the year and added that to the whole. So low end would, like I said, would be the 8,833 calls. High end, we could be up to 9,859 calls. Next slide, please. Oh. So budget woes. These are all of the items that I have found in our current budget that were underfunded. Some of the lines, I mean, $12 doesn't look like a lot, but as you can see, each line, it compounds and it adds up, and we're at 34,000 in the hole. Excuse me. If we took the woes and we had actually added those to the FY 26 budget, we would have been at a 5% increase instead of the 5.8%, but trying to show the correction because we're going to have to pay this, whether it's budgeted or not. It's coming out of this year's budget and it's going to come out of next year's budget. So due diligence, you need to see that we're in the negative 34,000. Miranda, oh, did you have a question, Ida?
Sure. Thank you. I'm just curious what some of these
Items
like,
are?
Yeah, what I like Vector and Virtro, which are each around 5,000.
So Vector is our scheduling software and it also does our payroll. When I say our payroll, all of our time off is managed through it. We extract our payroll from that and submit it to Town. And Virtro is a training module that we have. It's a training simulator for de-escalation situations.
Okay,
which
and there were just no lines, or those weren't
They
considered
weren't,
with other budget lines.
no, they were not budgeted anywhere within the budget book.
I guess, can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes, Miranda.
For some of the lines when we had a budget for it, but the actual was higher. Was it just additional services we needed, or just like increase in, what they're charging?
I think a lot of this was if you have just your home economics, your electric bill's $100 a month, you need to budget $100 a month. You can't budget 50. And I think that's some of what was going on that just,
So these
I don't think we were,
contracts we signed for like, we pay $1,000 for a service for the year, and then something happened.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And some of them were just completely missed for budgeting. But as I said, it was just as we were going through AP, I would take our bills, check it against our budget and to prepare for the budget for this year. And this is what I had found. So this, I apologize, Mary, for this one being so
That's
confusing,
okay.
confusing.
I was confused.
So let me just, again, basically, I've kind of already explained it now, but FY 26, if you add the budget will corrections into that, the actual increase of what we're asking for with our union negotiated increases, the radios, the tourniquets, and the winter jackets comes up to the 223,000, which is the 5% increase. This is to show our call volume. And this is call volume without the traffic stops. Our call volume, it's remained steady. Our SWAN personnel has stayed steady as well. We have not grown since 2012. 2019, our census was a little, it was difficult to understand in looking at it. So that's why I didn't want to put the numbers up because they were not clear to me, but it appeared that we were at 19 for sworn staff. And then we had an increase to 23, and that's where we've remained. 22 was a rough year for us. We had 7 vacancies and we had our highest call volume during that time frame. Again, this year, we're going to be at least 8,800 calls, if not a little bit more. Next.
May I ask a quick question?
Yes.
There? Are you budgeting for those 2 vacancies? So in
Yes.
other words, coming into the next fiscal?
Yes.
Thank you.
In the past, Tim, where we've had real chronic problems filling spots, like at DPW and police, I think there was an arrangement that said maybe we don't budget for the ones we don't have high hopes to fill, but holding hope in the option that if we could fill them, the board would find a way, maybe through the unassigned fund, to cover that. But now that we're closer to full staffing, I don't think that's operative anymore.
So this slide I wanted to show basically our calls for service that are time consuming with our staffing. So if we have a death and we've already gone up, we've had 29 death investigations so far this year. But this is obviously of October 10th. So we've beat, I shouldn't say beat with death investigations, but we've had more death investigations this year than any other year in the past 6 years. Those take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to complete. That's just our on scene. That's not the report writing afterwards in the office, waiting for the medical examiner's report, doing the follow-up investigation if necessary. Domestic assaults, they take between 2 to 4 hours. As you can see, we're pretty much on track, 83. We should be, well, we've had a few more actually too. So we're on track with our calls, you know, our major calls. Assaults have taken a huge jump. Last year, 127, this year, 264. I've asked Amy if she can take that and do an overlay to see where these are happening in town and see if that gives us a better picture, because you had asked for theories on why such a high increase, to see if location can help make a determination and a piece of that.
Tim, did you have a question?
No, I was waiting.
No, they were waving.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I thought the same at first. DUI. So with our DUIs, a typical DUI, so DUI alcohol, that's about 2 to 4 hours. If it's a DUI drug where we need a drug recognition expert to respond, you can add another 2 to 4 hours to that for their response and then their evaluation that they do. Crashes, they take about 1 to 2 hours. And then our arrests for the year, we have 389 so far. So we've been busy. Yes.
Are the death investigations murder investigations?
No, so it's any type of death. It's, you pass away in your sleep, we're gonna investigate it.
Eric has hand up first.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for the kicks of it, I took your numbers in this because I think this is actually informative, and we'll talk more about this later. But I just came up with aggregates for the year by using the midpoint of the staffing requirement for each category. 1251 in 2020, 1201, 1260, fairly steady through there. 1034, 1104. And then it's really just in the last year, it's jumped up to 1432 and a half based on, I mean, that's really rough math, obviously, just picking the midpoint, you know, so for a death investigation, 5 hours and times the number of those gets us, you know, 90 hours in 2020, for example. So we plot that out, which, you know, it's all of this data is a little tough because you're dealing with 3 COVID years in it. And so when I was looking at this data, I was like, this is not, you know, I'm having a hard time drawing many conclusions from this, except that in the last year, there's definitely an uptick.
Yes.
So anyway, that's my additional thoughts.
Thank you. With Miranda, you had? Oh, I'm sorry, Ida.
I'm just curious what the definition distinction between domestic assaults and assaults. Is one just in a home and the other?
So domestic would be domestic partners. So that would typically is someone that's within your home is how that relates. However, it could be someone that's just a relative, but you're not living together.
Right, and the other ones are
Simple
like
assaults.
outdoors, or?
It could still be in a home,
Yeah.
but it may not. It could be an apartment building, separate apartments, things of that nature. Fights in the park, things like that.
Any other questions? Want to continue?
Thank you. So I have a request to add 2 sworn positions for FY 27, and then I'd like to try and add another 2 more for FY 28. I understand the per capita approach is an antiquated approach for staffing. However, I'll be quite honest, I'm not a mathematician. And in the manual that I've used from the Michigan State University, of the different approaches that they had in there, that was the only one I was able to do mathematically. So I wanted to at least show that one. I'm very honest, I am not a math person, but basically what they came up with is you need 1.8 patrol officers per 10,000 in a population. So I I pulled Hartford's population, multiplied it by the 1.8, came up with 19. That's not sworn, that's for patrol. So those are your officers that are responding to calls. We are currently at 12 for if we're fully staffed for patrol, it's 12. So then what I did is I looked at some comparable towns. Brattleboro, Chief Hardy there, she currently has 28 sworn officers. Her
In
population.
patrol.
No, she's top to bottom. She
Because
is
I want to
28.
compare apples to orange.
No,
Apples
I
to
understand
apples,
that, but for us going from sworn, so her sworn staff is 28, our sworn staff is 21, because we have two non-sworn positions, three non-sworn positions. So she's 28 sworn, and she's adding to this current year. Bennington, Chief Doucette, his population is about 15,000. So he has a bit of a higher population. He currently has 26 sworn. However, he has 2 homeless shelters. He does have several encampments that they deal with, and they are currently looking at adding a low barrier shelter to Bennington as well. So he's facing some similar issues that we are, and he uses us on a regular basis as well as a comparable. So I pulled some information from him. So just kind of showing what 2 other agencies are that are somewhat comparable to our size and what they have for sworn numbers.
Can I interject? What about kind of anecdotal input from the community? I know that I've been at meetings at which people concerned about the perception of safety or lack of safety in Hartford have discovered and been concerned about how many police officers are available at any given time to respond to problems. In other words, how many you've got on a particular shift, for example.
So we currently have 3 on a shift. So if one person is out, we'll be down to 2. At night specifically, that happens on a regular basis. After 11 o'clock, we're typically going down to 2 officers on duty. And we'll have 3 on at 7 in the morning. If we are short-staffed on day shift, we may still be running with 2 people. If the person from night shift, for some reason, can't hold over, one of our patrol lieutenant will cover the road. So we do work relatively short, especially if we have someone who's out on injury, sick leave, or vacation time. You can have 3 people on. A full shift is 4. We don't have the staffing to have 4 on. So we typically have 3 people on shift. And if somebody is at training, we have one person who's out for a bit right now. That puts that shift down to 2. If someone, like I said, if someone's on vacation, we're only allowed to have one person on vacation at a time on a squad for now. If we have a squad of 4, we are willing to go down for 2 on vacation or some type of accrued leave. And then we fill 1 slot with overtime. So we have that standard of 3 people on. We don't have the staffing to currently do that. So we'll typically go down to 2 people on duty. Yes.
Does that impact, do you think that impacts response time to calls?
It can. There are sometimes our lower level calls have to wait. Today we had a CPR call that was in Queechee. Our officers responded to as they're headed to that. Then a car accident came in. The car accident, unfortunately, was a minor parking lot crash, so that could sit and wait. But calls do get stacked up and they have to wait. So if I was fortunate enough to have the 2 positions added, one for FY27 would go into patrol. The other would go to outreach to help with some of the outreach efforts that we're trying to put into place. And then FY28, one would go to patrol and one would go to our detectives division. Currently, we do still have 2 vacancies that we're working with. We're still, currently it's 2 vacant sergeant positions, but we'll promote from within and then we'll fill officer positions.
I do want to point out that the proposed budget does not include funding for these requests that the chief has just made, because that's part of the select board guidance. Let's try to do a maintenance budget to exclude new hires to the extent possible, but still leaving the department heads free to advocate for them. So that's what she's doing.
And not for FY 27, but FY 28 for future growth. When we were in our situation table training, it was an incredibly dynamic presentation that was done by Justin Johnston of the Brattleboro Police Department. He is their community resource specialist, which also could be titled as a recovery coach. He's a gentleman who is in recovery himself. He lived his life overdose to overdose. He would trade vehicles for drugs. He, as he puts it, he was in it. He's done federal time. He's done, state time. He has been arrested by Brattleboro PD on a regular basis. His sister died of an overdose, and that was his wake-up call. He's one of two. So his mother, he was his mother's only child left. That was his, like I said, his wake-up call. He got himself clean. He ended up working for Turning Point, became their assistant executive director. He then left that position and became the community resource specialist for the Brattleboro Police Department, working alongside the officers that used to arrest him. But he goes out and he helps people get themselves into recovery. I can't think of a better way to help people that are struggling. A police officer can stand there and tell you all day long, drugs are bad for you. You should, reach out to Claire Martin, or you should go to HCRS. You need to get assistance. But to get that from somebody who truly has been there. And when you look at Justin Johnson, he is a healthy looking person. And, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but he speaks volumes. And I think for someone like him to be able to connect with people and show them, this is where you could be, I can help you. I can help you get there. I'll work with you. And I think it would be amazing for the town of Hartford to be able to have a position like that. So that's something that Lieutenant Fenari and I have started researching and pulling job descriptions from other agencies that have positions such as that.
I guess what timeline you're thinking for a position like a recovery coach? What your timeline is for that, with that. And I know you probably don't have those numbers right now, but I'm also curious what cost that might be, because I know that a lot of community members have concerns around drug use in our community. And so I'm wondering if maybe that is something that could be a higher priority.
I would like to see if it's something that we might be able to partnership with an outside agency and have it embedded. If that's not an option, then looking at creating the position and moving forward with that. FY 27 might be a lofty goal, but I don't know that it's not attainable. Like I said, we just barely started researching it. We had that training in September. I've been talking with Chief Hardy to see what she's been doing and how she got the position. There's a community resource specialist at the St. Johnsbury Police Department, but not being able to, I haven't gotten a copy of his job description. The request is out. But just because something has the same title, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the same position. So just trying to compare and see what other agencies are doing. I think it's important to see what works at other agencies. I'm definitely not a plug and play person. I don't believe in just taking something from another town and throwing it into ours and saying it's going to work or believing it's going to work. We have to do stuff that works for Hartford. So that's in a research phase for us.
Okay, I think maybe I misunderstood. So the outreach position for FY 27, like the two hires, one would be patrol and one would be federal?
No, so
okay.
it'd be two sworn positions, but I'd like to move another officer. So currently Lieutenant Fenari is trying to do street outreach with our Claire Martin embedded worker, Caitlin, because she shouldn't be going down into the encampments by herself trying to make connections and that. So he's trying to oversee outreach. run coalition meetings. He's spreading himself very thin. So having an additional resource in there that is patrol, sworn position, that can go out and do that street level contacts with people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I do have a
So-
question. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to find, I have too many tabs open. Can't find mine. Sorry. So yeah, I think I just wanted to better understand, I mean, I guess knowing now that you're not asking for the community service officer for this fiscal year.
Well, community service officer we have. This would be a community resource specialist.
Okay, so they're not listed in the org chart. That's just what the vacant FY 2028.
So
That
the
would
FY
probably-
27 would be under patrol for one. And then FY 20, actually on here, it's put under detectives for FY 27, but I would prefer to have that to be under outreach. And then FY 28, if we were fortunate enough to be able to add another 2 positions, one would go to patrol, one would go to detectives. They would be internal. The move up in outreach and the move up into detectives would be internal lateral positions. And then we'd rehire for entry-level police officers.
Okay, so the community service officer that's under the outreach lieutenant.
That's the parking enforcement, animal control, health
Right,
officer
okay,
position.
and that's funded and vacant.
We just had 5 interviews.
Okay, so yeah, I was curious about, I guess I was surprised in this presentation because I had considered that position as like parking enforcement and then also maybe I think I saw somewhere animal
Mhm.
safety, dealing with like animal complaints. So what is the community service officer define? What makes them community service, I guess?
That was,
Because they're also combined with the health officer position. Brett Mayfield is retiring, and
Oh,
because we've had difficulty finding a standalone health officer willing to work for a very small amount of stipend money, the thought was maybe we can marry this with other needs at HPD so that they can have kind of oversight of one person who would be tasked with parking enforcement, animal control, and the health officer function.
okay. And you're interviewing for that now. Is that, I guess I'm curious about the structure of the role of health officer. Can we just change it to be a paid
Well,
PD position?
that's part of this CSO. He or she will be receiving a salary to cover all of their work for all 3 functions.
Okay, I kind of I guess, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I like the fact that Brett has operated not within any department, but as like an individual entity, I feel like there is a level of kind of like,
Autonomy.
yeah, autonomy of the health officer that I guess I didn't know that was changing to be this position.
That's been the plan for a few months now, only again, because of the difficulty hiring someone willing to do the sometimes unpleasant work of a health officer for very little money. So the thought is, let's find a position that perhaps could have room to do the 20 hours or so that Brett thinks he needs to have done in the community to perform his function well.
Okay. And then the other vacant one that's on here, which is the embedded HDRS police liaison. When we hopefully refill that position, is that 1 person or is that 3 people?
that's 1 person.
Did we have at any point more than 1 HDRS person working with the department?
We've had several over the years, but only 1 at a time.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I guess I misunderstood. I thought that there was multiple folks.
There's a Clara Martin embed and then
Yeah.
HCRS embed.
So it's only 1 at a
Yes.
time from HDRS.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of Laura? Okay,
All right.
we're still On track.
Plowing,
All right.
plowing ahead.
So none of this is in the budget. Our ballistic shields, so this is a list of equipment that we do have a need for. Our ballistic shields, they cost $14,000. They're $7,000 a piece. Both of the ones we have are expired. So replacement cost is $14,000. Key management system, that's $5,500. That's basically a system that's going to maintain all of the key storage for our vehicles. So that way, the officers that are assigned a vehicle can have their assigned key, but then there's key access to those vehicles still within the building, and there's integrity to those keys as well. So if I need a key to a vehicle, I punch in my code, I take that key, I go out and I do what I need with the vehicle. I don't put that key back. Someone else needs a key for that vehicle. They can look to see, well, who was the last person who had the key? Most departments have some type of key management system. We have
If
not.
you get the key, they get to wake you up at night to get it back.
I hopefully not. But no, I mean, we have no key management system really. And we do have keys that open other businesses in town and they should be somewhere that's secure and has a secure access for those keys. Expandable batons,
Is this new?
expandable batons?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I
No.
haven't seen them.
I
I only see them on TV.
Yeah, no, we carry small sticks on us. My baton is 25 years old. So I don't use mine obviously as much as other staff may, especially with our training and that, but the worst experience can be that you need to use your baton to do just a jab to get someone behind, back from you, and your baton collapses on you rather than staying solid. So, not for, so 4,700 for approximately 21 batons. Soft shield ballistics shields, that would be a new addition, 2,000 for one. We could use those when there's a situation such as someone's in a residence, they're threatening their home, they're by themselves, but they're making threats to maybe shoot outside their window. We can at least block that window with a ballistic shield until we're able to have our crisis negotiators come out, talk to them, and hopefully have a peaceful resolution. But it gives us the opportunity to have something that we can put over that's a little bit safe, making the situation safer. And they're lightweight and they're small. We can just keep them in the cruisers in the back. We're asking for 2 so that we can have one in each supervisor's car. So one would always be on the road at one time. So those are the equipment needs that we're asking for.
Wait, so these are in the budget?
Those are not in the budget, not in the budget. The budget the budget that was presented to you in the budget book, that is strictly bare bones, just asking for the items, the 4 portables that are no longer supported software wise, a replacement of tourniquets and winter coats.
I have a question about the winter coat.
Actually, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was curious. I think it's like 8,400 for the
Mhm.
winter coats, and I'm wondering what makes them so special.
Gore-Tex, when you're outside in the rain, you might be, if we're at a crash scene, we could be standing out in the rain for 1 to 2 hours. They're also, there are 3 system coats. So you have your spring shell and your winter shell. So it's 1 coat, but it's 3 seasons for us. But the price, we'll be outside for hours on end if we're at a situation, a barricaded subject, some type of standoff. We will be standing outside for 8 hours. And it's important for our officers to be warm.
And they don't, that's just like kind of the brand that you've spec'd is kind of the standard. There's not a.
This is actually one of the cheapest ones we could find. 511 was the most reasonable winter coat. Reserves. So the cruiser, the 2 items that I have up there that I have as must-dos, those were reserves that were set up by Chief Sheldon. So to maintain that cycle, so our cruiser, if we put in our 30,000 for FY27, we'll be able to purchase that cruiser in FY27. what my proposal is after this, we'll purchase that car in FY 27. Our cruiser for FY 28 would actually go to the lot as a lot item. We would continue to make reserve payments, except I would like to bump it up to 45,000 in the future. So that way, 1 year a car is coming out of our reserves. The year that it's not coming out of reserves, it would go to the lot. So we'd be purchasing the car, 1 car a year, but every other year, one would be coming out of our budget. The following year, it would come out of the lot. Command trailer, that has been done for, it's a 5-year cycle that's being done on that. That's a vehicle that would be used if we had a major incident where we would be able to work out of that vehicle. We'd have a dispatcher with us. Basically, we could run the incident, which more or less would be running the police department, but for that one incident out of that vehicle, and the rest of the department could continue working, doing what they needed to do. So that we don't end up in a situation quite like we are currently with our portable radios. I propose to start setting up a reserve cycle for our portables and having it on a purchase cycle of every 4 years. So we would purchase 4 portables every 4 years. So if we put down 10,500 annually for 4 years, we would purchase the 4 portables and then cycle out our oldest ones every 4 years. A range trailer. This is good. So our current range trailer is, it served its purpose. However, it is overfilled, and so it's overweight. When you're running range and you're trying to get in and out of the trailer, if it's raining, we run range. If it's raining, snowing, it doesn't matter because
What does that mean, running range?
Range trailer, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
A range trailer, yep.
I don't know what that means. That's
So
all.
it's the trailer we ususe to put all of our firearms equipment in for range day.
Firing range.
Firing
You go
range.
practice.
Yes.
Okay.
However,
Thank
that is on a 2-year cycle because our, like I said, our current trailer is overfilled and overweight. 20,000. We also have an issue with the facilities at the range. Our range is the sand pit. They're very gracious to let us use it. However, as a female officer, I'm kind of done going to the bathroom on a hillside. Quite frankly, it would be nice to have a trailer that has a restroom in it. We have more female officers at the department. For years, it was just me, and okay, I'll stand on a hillside and hope for the best. But I think it's about time that we've got something that is effective for our female officers to have a restroom. I don't think that's a big ask.
They don't have a porta potty there?
No. If you need to go to the bathroom, I will tell you, I sat on the edge of my rocker panel on my cruiser last night to go to the bathroom because that was the bed. I opened up my car doors. And as one of the guys walked by, I said, hey, just don't walk on this side of the car. I'm going to the bathroom. So I think it's high time we took care of our officers.
But would a porta potty be an acceptable, rather than like a full?
So I would have to look into the cost difference, but then there's also, we're using a facility that's not ours. So now we're asking them to allow another company to come down, drop a porta potty off, come back down and pick it up. I don't know how much leeway we would have, whereas this, I am quite certain we could probably work out an arrangement with the KOA, and we could schedule our ranges so that we could bring the trailer there to use their dump station to clean out the holding tank. Ballistic plates, those, I need to just check my notes. So those are 42 plates that would be on a cycle of every 5 years to replace. Ballistic plates are bulletproof vests. All of those have a 5-year expiration date on the Kevlar. So our plates, we have soft armor and we have hard plates. These are our hard plates. By putting away the $3,500 for every 5 years, we'll be on a cycle where we're not making these big purchases all at once when they're needed in 5 years. Same thing with our ballistic helmets. Those are on a 10-year cycle. We are at we've, the current helmets that we have, we've had for 1 year. So to plan for the future, in 9 years, we're gonna have to replace all of the helmets. So by putting away the $3,000 a year, we'll be prepared for them in year cycle 9. So that would be an annual cost for our reserves of 77,000 to be able to plan ahead for all these items that at some point are going to expire. Questions?
What questions do you have?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Chief. A bunch of questions, but I think probably the place to start really, and it impacts the next topic as well. Not the dispatch, but the lot. So maybe skipping ahead a little bit here, but I think it's all interwoven in my mind. And it really gets to the philosophy of the approach for policing. By the way, one of your slides, you had a reference to the study, performance-based policing study.
Yes.
Thank you for including that, and I would encourage other board members to read it if you haven't already. I haven't read all of it, but I read a few pages, and it was pretty informative, and it got me sort of thinking about the right way to think about, how do we go about budgeting for the police and so on, and how do we understand what facility needs we have. It's all sort of tied together. And you mentioned earlier that you did use the per capita approach, and in the guide, and I know your disclaimer was that was just the simplest one, and that's sort of, they listed the pros and cons of using that, and that's the only pro, was it's the simple.
Yes.
People can find the demographic information and do the basic math, but they then list a whole bunch of downsides to it, of course, which I'm sure you're aware of, and then they outline a number of other approaches, which I'm sure you're aware of, sort of commenting mainly for the board. But one of those approaches goes back to the slide about staffing, and it's sort of the workload approach. And I think also there's, a way of looking at peak demands and so on. And since we do have arrangements with other towns, understanding that as well will be useful. So I don't know how much your data analyst, crime data analyst gets into doing this kind of stuff, but it seemed quite manageable to me, at least. They give you a worksheet kind of for how to come up with like the workload approach. That was the one that I started reading on a little bit more, and it seemed, like it could augment our thinking around staffing, and get a little bit more detailed about staffing needs versus the per capita approach. Of course, all of this in the introductory chapter, as you probably recall, and the introductory chapter ends with the note that that intuition is your best, and so we have to rely on your intuition there. But I like to take intuition and numbers and see, if they align, great. If they don't, then maybe there's more questions. At any rate, I wanted to understand the philosophy of policing, because there's the community policing part outlines the generalized approach and then the specialized approach. And I'm sure it's not just one or the other, it's probably a spectrum, maybe a spectrum. The generalized approach would be that all of the officers are trained in and active in community policing. The specialized approach would be you have like the outreach division or some division that focuses. I know you know this one, so I'm really telling them. But in the generalized approach, what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, you're decreasing the amount of time, or you have to factor in a bunch of time for officers to be able to do non-obligations things, right? So if they get a call, it's an obligatory response or whatever. And then you have to factor in a percentage of the officer's time to do the non-obligation stuff, which is basically doing outreach to people and engaging and so on and so forth. And so the math on staffing is radically different than if you do a specialized approach, in which case your patrol officers are just patrol officers and you're doing the math a little differently. And then you have a separate group that's doing community policing. So, and then the facility needs are obviously derived from some of this sort of philosophical stance. So I'm going to shut up now and let you respond to that and sort of enlighten me and us perhaps on where we're going, where we are, where we're going with community policing.
So our vision, and I say ours because it's the whole police department's vision, outreach, we just went, I put this as best I can. We just participated in what's called the PSAT, which is the public safety. I have it written down because I know it as PSAT, and I want to make sure that I give you the correct acronym and title. I may not have I don't have the acronym all spelled out, and I apologize. But it's the Vermont Public Safety Enhancement Team. I had it right in front of me. I apologize. The Vermont Public Safety Enhancement Team. So that was born out of Commissioner Jen Morrison, and it's a 2-year program. It started 2 years ago, and Hartford was one of the communities that was involved in it. It was Hartford, Springfield, Brattleboro, and Bennington. This is where the coalitions, the community meetings, the situation table, all of this was born out of that. And there's more that's happening with it. And I will tell you straight, I am not an expert in it. I went to my first meeting on Monday. And I found that, listening, and I'm very happy for Springfield, Brattleboro, and Bennington and how far they've come with their community outreach. We were afforded those same opportunities. I'm not sure what happened with Hartford. I think some deadlines were missed, and we are still struggling to get outreach up and running. I think so. During this meeting, I reached out to Heather McLaughlin, who is the assistant to Jen Morrison, and basically was, what can we do to get all of this assistance? Because as these towns were presenting their successes, I was a little jealous, I'll be honest. Yeah, they've put a lot of effort in and they're getting a lot back, and it's incredible. And I want Hartford to be there. A lot of the benefits that were available 2 years ago are no longer available. Those grants have run out. They're concerned that those grants are no longer available due to the current political climate. Heather is willing to work with us. Jim Baker was the person who was in Heather's position 2 years ago. He's since retired, but he worked alongside all of these towns to help them get the right stakeholders to the table, help facilitate the beginning of these community meetings. The smaller subcommittees, they had basically the hand holding that we haven't had. And Will and I are trying to piece it together and move forward and do the best we can. Are we perfect? We certainly aren't, but we're doing our best to figure it out and move forward with outreach. But Heather is willing to work with us and help us get us back on track, hopefully, so that we can kind of catch up to what Springfield and Bennington and Brattleboro have accomplished. When you talk about the different types of policing, to me, outreach, that's a good combination of both types of policing. It's both proactive because you're going out in the community, you're doing that outreach piece, but it's also reactive. People are calling, they were going out after an overdose, trying to connect with that person. So they're the balance. Patrol does the same thing, but they may not do it necessarily on a focused group, because outreach is really trying to reach out to the people who need to get connected with resources. Patrol, they may run into those same people after outreach has gone home. If they're on scene, they'll call outreach and outreach will go meet with them. But if it's after hours, they'll fill out a situational report, which will help. So when Chief Gooney was talking about the situation table, we've changed our referral form since we partnered with the situation table. So instead of just getting a referral to outreach services, it may be a referral that ticks a few different boxes, and maybe it is just going to Caitlin, or maybe it would just go to HCRS. Or if it cross-sects both of them, or so for, I don't want to get too into the weeds for you, but you have to have a connection or an issue, a situation that reaches over two different subgroups. So if you have a mental health issue and you can't meet your basic needs, now you're cross-secting two different providers. So now you're able to go to the situation table. Well, as our officers are out doing either proactive or even reactive enforcement, they're at an assault. It could be any type of case where this type of information would come to them. They see that, they'll fill out the situation form. They may get consent from the person to be presented. If they don't get consent, that's fine. But they're going to take that information, they're going to refer it, and they're going to give it to outreach. So then outreach can do and bring it and present it to the situation table. The situation table, once they get there, they have to go through a few filters. If it's accepted, they get services, or there was an attempt to give them services, because people don't have to accept services, but they need to be offered. But the goal is to reduce their risk. And the goal is to do that within a week. So far we have closed all of our situations that have come to the table. We've had 8 so far in the 5 weeks that we've had situation table, and only 1 took 2 weeks to close. So of the 8, all have closed. 7 were closed in a week, 1 was closed within 2 weeks. So we're having successes there. I'm not sure that I've answered your question, Eric. I kind of went off on a tangent, and I apologize.
No, let me, I know your voice is
I'm rough
challenged
tonight, I'm
but,
sorry.
let me see if I can make a statement, and if you can agree, disagree, or
Mhm.
amend or edit. But it sounds like Hartford is going for a hybridization approach. So the patrol officers would be expected to be trained and participate in community policing skill sets and so on, and that type of work. But then there's also a specialization unit, which is the outreach, which is more sort of focused on a particular population.
Yes.
So when we are, if we were thinking about staffing in terms of workload, we are not at either end of the spectrum. We are somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
And okay, so yeah, I was just trying to understand that, and sort of the larger picture of like how that influences how we look at staffing needs. One other related question on that is with the outreach division. And I totally understand that that there's been some changes with the outreach division, and that Sergeant Fernari is 5 weeks into this right now. So I don't mean any disrespect at all, but I also don't know his skill set and background or interest levels and so on. I'm just wondering, like you had as in FY27, one of your would like to add staff would be a member of that outreach division. What would your reaction be to finding someone who has, decades of experience doing that type of work, and bringing them in to just, basically, even if it was like on a contract basis, even if they're like, I want to retire in 3 years or something, even better yet, like 3 years to take one of your officers and help them understand and develop skills and so on. But I just wondered if it just makes sense to bring in someone with like just a wealth of experience, and how that might affect the division and the path forward.
I'm not opposed to it. I'd be finding the right person. And it's a struggle to hire. And that's a nationwide issue for law enforcement. So why I sit here and I ask for 2 positions, I'm carrying 2 vacancies. It's difficult to hire, but if we were able to find someone, that'd be fabulous. I do have someone who I will say currently in the department that has interest in moving into outreach, enjoys doing outreach. He currently will do a lot of our CRACE training. He does a lot of work with our schools. It's outreach, but it's also a different cross-section of population that he likes to do outreach with. But he also enjoys just connecting with the community.
Thank you. First of all, I just need to express something. This isn't directed at you, but it is just incredibly frustrating to hear about missed opportunities from 2 years ago for training and support for our department that is having a really positive impact on other communities in our state. Yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating. And, you know, I think it does represent a failure, not to anyone specific in this room, but of just things that we missed out on.
I agree with you. I was frustrated sitting in the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just think I don't know, the public needs to know that was, you know, something that the town messed up on. And then sort of following up on Eric's points and ideas around sort of bigger philosophy. As you research, you know, potential expansion and different models, and I hope benefit from some resources that it sounds like folks that you're in touch with are willing to kind of offer and try to supplement to help Hartford bolster some of the, you know, training and resources that we haven't had the benefit of for the past couple of years. Just, you know, as you delve further into that, I wanted to encourage you to maybe look just a little bit outside of our state lines too, because I have a close friend in Amherst, Massachusetts, and they have a program where they call it like a third branch of their public safety. They have police, fire, and CRESS, which stands for Community Responders for Equity, Safety, and Service. So they're doing, you know, the role that you're speaking of in terms of these outreach responders, but it's different than a fully embedded approach. It's sort of thinking it as these three branches. And I could see that there might be benefits to that, to those experts sort of working within a context, a service context where they have the support around them for their expertise and collaboration. And obviously the three branches all, I'm sure, collaborate together, but something to sort of just maybe remain open to as a bolder shift down the line, if it seems like it could be a fit for Hartford. And I'm not sure if other towns in Vermont are doing something similar to that, but I think it would be worthwhile to kind of consider, to keep our minds open to different models that are a little bit less of this like integrated approach and something that's collaborative, but allows a branch to sort of address that expertise and have some of their own structure.
I know Brattleboro has a program. I don't know the details of it, but it's called BRAT. And it's a specialized team. It's not necessarily it's not like an outreach division, but it's specifically called BRAT, and they go out and do community engagement and things of that nature. So I'll be curious to compare that to CREST and see if there's any type of correlation between the two where they may complement each other or may be very similar, and it's something that we're doing in our state.
Yeah, and it might be like a phone call to
Yeah.
the police, the folks down in Amherst, just to sort of understand better how that came to be, how they first got it started, what it looked like in the early days, whether public support, what the relationship was with the community and the public demands that may have been happening at the time. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send the website to John so you can share it.
Any other questions?
I'm
Tim had
sorry,
a
just a brief
question.
comment. Thank you for your presentation. I like your thoughts around that, the idea of kind of creating this division. It just strikes me that in this community, we're just going to continue to see an emerging need. We kind of touched on it briefly with the nurse position. I kind of wrote down your community wellness division. I mean, it's kind of like a need set that I'm not saying it doesn't belong connected to your department, but I think it's likely that it could evolve in a way that it would suggest that it could be its own department kind of thing. I also just had a thought in the sense, and I think I mentioned this the other night, that I know we think of Hartford as a town with 5 cute little villages, but I think realistically we're getting to a scale and a challenge point as a community that we're becoming kind of a city. And I think we have city problems that we're gonna have to have different solutions for that, perhaps in a more of a quaint New England town, you just don't get to, or you don't have the resources for. So, I just kind of have that in mind with kind of these emerging and growing community needs that we have to address in some fashion. So, thank you.
Can I just ask?
Just a second, let Heidi finish.
It's a fairly quick one as a follow-up to something you had said, Connie. With the situation table, and you're saying that we're connecting people with services, I'm curious, are there services available? Like, for example, if you had a person in the community that was sent to the situation table, and they were 100% willing to either go into a inpatient rehab center, and they either don't have insurance or they have Medicaid, and or they're willing to do like outpatient therapy with HCRS or Claire Martin. Is the situation table basically saying, yes, we've got those resources available, like call us tomorrow, we'll get you in?
So what the situation table is, the first filter for the table happens outside of the table. That's going to be where, and primarily it's police that make the referrals, because we're the ones that are interacting with people on a daily basis, and fire as well. But primarily it's your first responders who are the high referrers to the table. So that's filter one. Filter two, it goes to the chair table, the chair of the table, which currently is Lieutenant Fenari. So he'll collect any of the referrals for our department. At the opening of the meeting, they go around, does anybody have any situations? And a situation can be one person, it could be a family, it could be, two people, a couple that aren't married, whatever the situation may be. That gets presented with non-identifying information. So, for example, we'll say I was presenting you, I'm presenting a female, she's in between 20 and 30.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Like you need to have, there are certain identifiers that you need to give. Between 20 and 30, she has, she's dealing with substance abuse issues. She's not unhoused yet, but she's facing imminent eviction, and she has 2 children. Is there any recognition? So if there's any people around the table that think that they have someone that they're working with that fits, I think I have some recognition here. I apologize. I skipped a step. It's not recognition. So it's, does this person meet AER, which is acutely elevated risk? So they have a high risk, like it's not going to continue. Things are going to get worse for this person if we don't step in, if we don't take them into the table. So there's a consensus vote around the table. Once that vote is yes, that they've reached AER, they then go to filter 3. That's where they de-identify the person. So then it's, okay, I'm talking about Ashley Andreas. She's a Hartford resident. Is there recognition? So if there's any partners around the table that have recognition with you, they're going to pipe up and say yes. Okay, who wants to take lead? HCRS, I'll take lead. Who else wants to work on the team? So the different providers that are around the table are going to step up and say, so we usually want between 4 and 5 of the providers to step up and take some ownership of this person. The filter 4 takes place outside of the table. So those group members, the team members, they're going to come up with a plan, and they're going to work to meet with you and help you deal with the situation that you have going on. So it's going to either, they're going to connect you with service, whatever that agency can do to work to get you a lower elevation of risk. It's not to fix your problems within that week. It's to lower your risk and help get you connected with the services that you need.
So I guess in part of that answer is that yes, there are services.
Yes.
We're not.
I can't say that those services, yes, boom, there's a bed available, because that's outside of because we may not even be part of their
Right.
filter 14.
Right. Okay. I'm just curious about that because, it's a narrative that I think we have there's two strong narratives, and I'm not sure which one is true, and maybe neither is really true. But one narrative is that there just are no services. Like, people can be willing to get help, but the help doesn't exist in our state and in our community. And then the other narrative is that, everybody who's in these kinds of scenarios is there by choice, and there's tons of help for people who want it, and you kind of have to reject all that help to be where you are. So I'm just trying to get a sense of like, is there any truth to either of those narratives? So that we could try to fund the services, or, identify what services we're lacking. Or just say, well, we don't need to, identify or fund additional services, they exist. But maybe that's a question for a larger group of providers in the area.
Yeah, I mean, these tables typically have, well, the training had 66 different providers
Wow.
at it.
Okay.
We are the first table that is interstate. So Lebanon works with us as well. So we'll have Lebanon Economic Services at our table as well, because a lot of times we'll deal with someone and we present them at our table because maybe we've interacted with them at a community dinner or, at Lyman Point Park, but they're from Lebanon. It doesn't mean we can't present them to our table. We may present someone at our table that, is passing through our area, but they're more set to the Barry Montpelier table. So we could present at our table the person and then say, yep, they meet all these filters, but we don't have the team here that's going to be able to help them. We'll take the information, we'll send it to the next table, and then they'll take that information and work with them.
Thank you.
Heidi, due to White River Junction, my questions are not that detailed. I was taking notes as you went through your presentation. I was concerned with how many detectives that we have sworn in at this time.
So we have 3 full-time detectives and 1 detective lieutenant.
3 full-time, 1. Okay, so you said that you had 3 unsworn officers at this time? Is
Not
that-
officers, they're administrative, they're non-sworn personnel.
Okay, thank you. So you said you had two open positions. So do we have 23 officers at this time? I'm just trying to understand.
So we are 23 sworn officers.
23 sworn. Thank you.
And those are all filled.
No, 2 are vacant.
So 2 are vacant, so we took,
So 23 sworn officers, 2 are vacant, 2 positions are vacant
so
There's 21 on.
we have 21.
currently, yes.
So how do you say we have 23 sworn
That's what we're budgeted for, is 23 sworn positions.
positions? 21 filled. Thank you. So how many cruisers do we have in use?
So we have 6 cruisers.
So we have 6 cruisers. And we budget for
6 marked cruisers.
6 marked. So I'm not trying to be difficult. So I've been following this budget since I believe 2019 or 2020. So I believe in the last 2 years between budget, ARPA, and lot, we've gotten 4 brand new cruisers, if I'm not incorrect. So now you're looking to get a new cruiser every year moving forward, whether it's through the budget or the lot funding. Is that correct, Connie?
We've replaced 1 cruiser every year.
I'll go back through and I will look through my computer because I kept everything. But I believe 1 year you got 1 through lot and 1 through ARPA. And I could be wrong, but anyhow, may I ask another question or no? Thank you. So when John, I believe, said that we were looking to get some more officers, and it was because citizens of not only the outreach program, but citizens were complaining that there were not enough officers to answer the calls. And it was because we didn't have enough sworn in officers on each, I have postal government lingo versus you guys, but we have shifts. I don't know if you guys use shifts, we have tours, but it's not always because you don't have enough people. I've also noticed because they congregate together and they're not always in the areas of town where they're actually needed and where there's problems. So it's not always because there's short staffing. So how many detectives do you have on?
So during the day, there's 4 detectives on.
So do
One's a
they
lieutenant.
actually go out and answer calls also, or are they only for detective
They are
purposes?
doing special investigations.
So those are not included, are those included in your 21 or are those outside of your 21?
They're within the 21.
So we actually only have 17 officers that go out to answer calls for
So-
3 shifts.
We have 2 shifts. We work 12-hour shifts, 12 hours, and then an overtime shift is 16-hour shifts.
I'm just trying to understand where we're having issues with staffing and because at the post office, we have 3 shifts. Sometimes we work 12 hours, sometimes we work 10, sometimes we work 8, all depending on what needs and what jobs and what positions and if we get asked for overtime. So I'm just trying to understand this. And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm really not. I'm just trying to
Would it
understand
be
this.
helpful if I explain what a shift schedule looks like?
You can, but I really don't want to waste their time and
Okay.
effort, but you can.
But they work 12-hour schedules. So one officer will work, it alternates. So one week you're gonna work Monday, Tuesday, you're gonna have Wednesday, Thursday off. Then you're gonna work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is a union negotiated contract. The following week, those same officers are gonna work Wednesday, Thursday. Typically, their shifts, they're 12-hour shifts, but there is always overtime. So they're working 16 hours.
Okay.
So it
I'm gonna
alternates
rewatch
back and
this so I can
forth.
write it down and make sense of it, but yes, okay, thank you. Shifts. I don't know if you guys are
I
understanding
was
this.
wondering if maybe it might be better for you and for Connie if you write this down in an email and ask John to give it to.
I only have, if you wouldn't mind, I have one more comment to do with the budget.
Okay,
So
I'll give you 1 more minute.
Okay, this will be quick, I promise. So as far as when Ashley asked about the health officer being put into one of the positions that you're proposing on the outreach programming, I can't remember what that was called, the
Community
COS.
service officer.
How are you taking the health officer position, which is a state regulated position, and putting that into a different position?
That was the recommendation of HR and the town manager to
Because
add
that's a
the health
state regulated
officer.
position, am I not?
Yeah, there's certainly no reason why an individual couldn't perform all 3 functions, wearing different hats.
Is that person still working for the state of Vermont?
Yeah.
Okay, just asking.
Hmm.
I'm just asking if this
I mean,
is.
that's kind of a nuance because they're working for the town, but ultimately they're appointed by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up about that?
Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you. So if the state, for example, say for whatever reason, the state unappointed that person, would they then lose their job in the department, or how would the union handle that?
It's a non-union position.
It would be a non-union position, okay.
Hard to imagine the state removing somebody because they, again, are so pleased whenever the town is able to appoint someone for that coverage. But, I guess it's conceivable. I'm not aware of it happening, but it could have happened or could happen in the future. I don't know. There's, as Brett has said, though, he's anxious to train and mentor the new health officer or CSO, and that there is, of course, training available at the state level for the health officer.
Okay.
I'll just add, you do something similar with me now. Every 5 years, you reappoint me through Forest and Parks to be your fire warden. So it would be probably a similar relationship with the Department of Health.
Okay. Oh, wait, Chief Cooney, before you sit back down, I'm sorry. Is that a part of your job description, Ashley?
It is
Or is-
not part of my job
Okay.
description. It is a appointed position through the select board to the state.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, dispatch.
Alright.
This one's pretty quick.
That's what they all say.
Huh, I probably should, I use that keyword. So Budget difference. I struggled over this. I cannot figure out why we're in the negative or in the negative. I went over salaries for FY '26, went over for salaries for FY '27. I come up with the same numbers. We have had 3 vacancies in communications and we have 3 candidates in the background phase of the hiring process. So we will be up to hopefully full staff shortly out there. Dispatches for 11 fire departments, 7 EMS and fast squads, and 4 police departments. Once we get up to full staff, we have 2 more agencies that want to contract with us for their dispatch services. We've put them on hold because we want to make sure that we're able to provide quality service to them, and we can't do that until we're fully staffed. Next slide, please. This is just this one's easy for dispatch because not that the only thing they do is answer the phone, but this is primarily one of their biggest job functions besides the radio out in dispatch. So those are the numbers for their calls for service. That's 911 landlines to dispatch. And according to our stats for up until October 20th, they're at 16,000 calls for the year, a little over 16,000. So they should be approximately just under 20,000 calls for service this year. Next slide, please. So dispatch is a revenue division as well. So for dispatch, to dispatch for Hartford, that's for Hartford Fire, us, EMS, and that, it costs about $1 million. That green is our contract town. So we pull in about 541,000 from our contract towns, those 11 fire departments, 4 police departments and that. And then for our 911 calls, we pull in 94,000. That is based on, there's a certain percentage, correct, Scott, that you have to answer out 911.
90%.
So of the calls that come into dispatch, Hartford has to answer 90% of those 911 calls that get called in. So you can bump a call to another PSAP, but as long as you're within that 90%, you get the 94,000. We're always within that 90% answering. Next slide, please. Budget woes. So for dispatch, I did the same thing. Not so much with our, I mean, yes, with our bills that have come in. But once I started seeing it on the PD side, I'd had our administrative assistant basically just pull all of our contracts that we have so I could start comparing them. And then I compared them against the budget lines. The biggest one you can see is the last one, Spillman. That line was off by 20,000. Spillman is what we use for that's our dispatch program. So all of our emergency dispatching to police, our other agencies, fire, we use this Spillman. Basically, that is our backbone. Without Spillman, we're not running. It would be very difficult for us to do our jobs without Spillman. So even though our budget for dispatch is 19,000 under budget, that's still taken into consideration the 36,000 that we're under as well. Next slide, please. Within the budget too for FY '27, outside these equipment needs were not budgeted in. The only item that I budgeted in for the dispatchers were 3 new 24-hour chairs. They are behind a desk constantly for their shifts. They work 10-hour shifts. When there's overtime, it could be a 15-hour shift for them. So it's important to have a good chair for them, and their desks, they can stand in that, but there is an extra 8,000 in the budget already for the 3 chairs. Scott, can you speak to Equiture and the solid state drives?
Sure, Equiture Communications Intelligence, that's our recording system. That's how we play back calls for the dispatcher to immediately play it back in case they didn't hear everything that the caller was saying, or stuff on the radio as well. We haven't had an update in our recording system for many years. So that Equiture Communication Intelligence would also provide a new software, the ability to, it transcribes the information it's hearing. So it's writing it out right in front of the dispatcher, so he can actually see what the person is saying in case he didn't hear it correctly. The solid state drives are the drives that are needed to update our recorder. In order to also handle that new Equiture and Communications Intelligence software.
And then the UPS battery backups for dispatch, the $1,680. And dispatch would like to have a new microwave. That's, and really with their position, unless they're able to have food delivered or an officer's free to run and pick up dinner for them, that's what they use to cook their dinners. You know, they don't have a kitchen. It's the microwave. So for them, the equipment needs would be $7,910 extra to the budget.
So this is not budgeted.
Not budgeted. With the Equiture, if we were able to do a 5-year contract, that $3,780 would go down to $3,400 a year instead. So there would be a benefit to doing a 5-year contract with them. Yes.
Is there any reason you wouldn't do a 5-year contract?
No, but just wanted to have both options up there in case the town didn't want to do a 5-year contract for some reason. And reserves. So again, the first one is a must do. We've been putting money away for a new console, a 4th console. So for those that toward dispatch, where the cabinets are in dispatch, we would put our 4th dispatch position there, so we could have 2 dispatchers on full time, a 3rd also, and then in emergency situations, we could have the 4th. Or were you looking at staffing that 4th one fully?
It depends on other agencies that might come on board.
Okay. And then in an effort to start getting our computers and monitors on a cycle, we haven't replaced our computers and monitors and dispatch for quite a period of time. So this would be initially to do a complete replacement over the course of 2 years. So on the 2nd year, doing the replacement of all the monitors and computers, and then starting to put a smaller chunk of money away each year, maybe doing it every 4 years for new computers. So for the local option tax, to do similar to what you were talking about, Eric, with having a comprehensive staffing and space needs analysis. This is just one particular company. I went to training with them just to kind of get an overview of information on what even it entails to look at trying to build a new public safety. Like what's the process in doing a building? And this company will come out. They charge $60,000, but they laid out everything in this that they would do. And they would go back and do a projection for 20 years. So basically, they go back 5 years in our dispatch center, looking at all of our calls, building the data from that of what the needs are for the town. They also look at the town and what the town's growth has been. So they do the dispatch piece of it, but they also look at what's been going on in the town for the past 5 years and try to project the growth of your town for the next 20 years. But they break it down into those 5-year increments. So while they're doing it for staffing for your police department, they're basing it on the growth of your town. They also look at doing, some hiring retention type things. So where making sure that you're comparable with the police departments in your area. So that way people want to come to Hartford. They want to work for the town of Hartford. But then also the piece that I was really curious about is what exactly does our town need? And John had asked me the question of, if you were looking to build a department, what would you look for square footage? And I had a number in my head and was like, oh, that sounds, like that would be decent. It's probably bigger than what we have. We're roughly, I pulled our blueprints, we're about 7,300 square feet.
The people who took the tour are well aware of your tight spot.
Tight spaces, yes. And then I visited Lincoln, New Hampshire, who just built a new PD, and that's about 13,000 square feet. I didn't know his square footage when I visited it, and I walked around, I was like, this is gorgeous. It would fit us now, like, we would be able to be comfortable in there, and we wouldn't be on top of each other. But there would be no room for growth. So this particular company, they take that into consideration where they look for the growth. Fire departments, when they build new buildings, there's usually grants available for fire departments. There are not grants available for police departments. However, if you are a 911 call center, which we have, then you are eligible for grants. It's not necessarily the police department, but it's your 911 center. They will research the grants for you. They will help apply for the grants, and they will help manage those grants for you.
We excuse me, we talked about wrestling matches before, but another one is, who gets dispatch? Is it fire or is it police?
We do. They come with us because then we get the grants. But on the same, I say that jokingly, but also the current dispatch center, we don't have a place that's set up as a stand-up EOC for town emergencies. Our current dispatch center could be left and set up and would be a walk-in EOC, but it also an emergency operations center. So when we have major storms, major events, the EOC is opened up. We could leave that, start new, which is why we're not building, the desks out there are over $20,000 per desk, right? Or it's more, 25,000 per desk. Those are 10 years old,
Okay, yeah.
about 10.
Yeah.
So 25,000 10 years ago. Instead of trying to rebuild an EOC and then in a new building, build a separate EOC because your dispatch center can't be an EOC. We would have one that's already set up that could go in. And also if we had an issue where dispatch went down for some reason, when we had Berry City had flooding and Montpelier had their catastrophic flooding, their dispatch centers had to move elsewhere. We could still move right back to our own dispatch center and continue dispatching for the town. We'd have to leave one desk available to do that because the EOC would still be operating in there as well. But it benefits us to take dispatch along with us, but it also benefits them leaving because it leaves us a standalone EOC center that's available. And then, as I spoke about earlier, the cruiser for FY28, it says 80,000, but it would be putting 45 away each year. Currently, a cruiser costs 78,000. And that's if all of our equipment transfers over. If for some reason we need a new cruiser radio, the cruiser radios are $10,000. So if we, and also looking ahead at increases that are potentially going to happen, obviously. Nothing seems to come down in price. Everything tends to increase. So I'm just trying to be prepared and budget ahead for that and have 90,000 that we would eventually put away every other year. Next slide. Questions? Miranda?
Miranda.
Sorry.
Logistics question of the budget process, in that right, the dispatch budget came in negative, let's say $20,000.
Yep.
But then the equipment needs were $8,000. I guess because you propose it, how does that process work? Do we approve the budget? Obviously not today. Would we be approving the budget for the ballot as it is, or would we have this collaboration where we say, well, because you're under, we would like to see the equipment needs go into the budget? How does that
After all the department heads have presented, then there'll be several sessions devoted to simply kind of wrapping up. And part of the wrapping up process is how do the numbers look so far? What would you like are easy choices to make for cuts? What are easy choices you'd like to add to based on what you've heard? We can then find out again what the numbers look like in terms of tax impacts and all those other issues. So there'll be several opportunities at which you try to put all the pieces together in a budget that you can adopt or feel good about.
Okay.
And we'll keep track of those. That's why I've asked a couple questions myself, just to confirm what's in their budget what's not, so that at some point, there's a checklist so that nothing is left to fall between the cracks.
I guess with, this is a little bit going back to the police budget then, because I guess I would like to see the, because you didn't have it in the budget, but the 2 personnel and maybe the recovery budget, if you could pull, if you feel like maybe you could pull the numbers for FY 27, like, so we could just see what,
Right.
yeah,
Sure.
Quantify these desires.
yeah.
I also have kind of a budget procedural question, which is for the lot items that are in the presentations, is that anything that the board does anything with, or are those automatically on the back? I guess,
No.
do we decide if it?
The
makes it to
select board
ballot?
decides what you'd like to present to the voters at town meeting. That's true of what's the budget bottom line number. It's also true of what you'd like to recommend that they make use of the lot for. The charter says lot revenue, which is rooms, meals, and alcohol, goes into a fund, and then the voters, it stays in that fund until the voters tell us otherwise. And usually, at least as I understand the tradition here in Hartford, the tradition has been select board makes recommendations, perhaps based on staff recommendations or perhaps completely on your own, as to how you'd like to suggest that the voters consider using lot.
Okay.
And there's about $350,000 that is earned each year toward that fund.
And what we will receive during this budget season from all the presentations, John, are you doing kind of like a preliminary filter of like, with all the lot requests,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
more being asked for than we have in the fund, so you need to roll
Yeah,
it
yeah.
back, or do we need to?
Here's what I'm happy to do. I don't want to step on any toes, but I know certain people have certain views about what my role is and how far I should extend and how far I shouldn't, because I don't want to step on your toes. But Gail and I are certainly happy to lay out some options for you, kind of like a menu, what things are appealing to you, and those are the ones we can spend more time discussing.
Okay, I have one last follow-up to that. Sorry, Tim. I'm curious what the board might think about. I feel like this might be a good opportunity for like a public engagement or a forum. I don't know if we've ever done this as a town where we kind of look at the lot like requests that are coming to us as a board, and we have, one night meeting at the high school, ask folks to come out. Hey guys, here's the option. Like, here's all the things that staff needs or is requesting. Like, what is the community's thoughts? Just to get, a listening ear.
We do some of that on budget night. And we go and explain the proposed budget and the proposed lot votes. So
Yeah, we do. There is a
some of that.
section.
There is also something called a warrant information night,
Yeah.
at which times, sometimes there's a preview of what might appear on your ballot as lot items to be considered. It's a kind of a forum for discussion.
Yeah, if you feel like there's plenty of time at budget night, I know everything always runs later than we anticipate, right? So yeah, just if it's.
Just to clarify, it sounds like what you're asking for is like before we make the decision of what's on the ballot to sort of get some input about it.
Yes,
And
yeah.
And at budget night, it's already decided.
By then, I think it's
By then it's
decided,
So,
yes.
yeah, if there's an earlier opportunity, I think that'd be great.
And warrant information night is tentatively set for January 12th. So again, generally, most of the decisions are made as to the budget tentatively by mid-December, but it's not finalized until mid-January. So maybe mid-December to mid-January could be the time at which either this outreach is happening or you're having these discussions as to what you'd like to propose to the voters.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I think Tim also has.
I think it's an intriguing idea, although I will say, like, in general, maybe I'm overreaching here, but I have always found that in general, the community sort of trust our process in the sense that we have I would argue, pretty competent department heads. They present their budget. We vet it out. There's obviously pressure to keep it in a number that's palatable. So there's a lot that goes on that I think people understand and respect, that by the time you get to that level, you've already done that sort of banging out, like, should we buy an ambulance or a police vest or whatever, that kind of discussion. I'm not saying that it's not a bad idea. I'm always intrigued by, because people are so busy now and our schedules are so tight, that maybe we do more survey outreach instruments where we could do something of that nature and just get kind of a pulse on the community. But anyway, I was going to just kind of go back to the LOT situation, because we have sort of, as we know, and sort of two streams emerging here. So maybe we almost need like a new naming strategy, because the LOT on the one that requires voter approval is real. The other one, I think the philosophy is, we try and present a disciplined budget, and then when that revenue shows up, it shaves off what we have to ask from our citizens. I think that's where we started, right? So I think there, maybe at some point we can get a different naming strategy for the two revenue streams.
I agree. It can be confusing now that we have a second voter approved tax in town. Yeah.
I always think that it wasn't the best way, but I call them lost and lot.
Oh,
Because
local
one was
option
local
sales
option
tax.
Sales tax, and the other one is the local option tax.
And the lost is lost to us during budgeting because, yeah, I think I like that approach. Forget about it.
Aaron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other thought on the question of getting community input on lot items is just to really publish the budget nights when we're discussing that, and have people come in, and this is the forum. Throw your ideas on the table as we get to that point in the budget cycle. I have two items that I want to direct to the staff at this point. One is about the facility. I toured the facility first time back in 2017 and so on. And I think even back then, Chief Caston was definitely thinking about the needs for a new facility and demonstrating and showing and talking about some of the shortcomings. So I fully appreciate, and having toured it recently and just seeing some of the areas that are really cramped, there needs to be some action there. I'm not sure whether it's a new facility. I don't know if even rehabbing is an option given the logistical. That would be I think it would be very challenging, but generally I'm in support of it. What I was reading in Police Chief Magazine today, which I do not get, but it turns out they have a really nice outline, a 4-phase outline for running from project initiation to implementation. And most of the stuff is not too eye-opening, but it's very structured. And one of those is in phase 1, project initiation, document policing philosophy. I would really feel very comfortable, or I would feel much more comfortable if we have something documented in this, that we have an opportunity to poke and prod and understand in terms of the policing philosophy as we go forward, if we're going to go forward with this. And that's part of the project initiation phase. And I can send staff a link to this, and there's 7 parts of phase 1. That's, sure, none of this is rocket science, but it's sort of nice and structured. So that's my 2 cents on the facility. It's just understanding our philosophy and then moving from there. On the other lot item regarding the cruiser, it reminds me to ask, years ago, there was conversations about the idle reduction technology, which I'm forgetting the name of, versus battery operated vehicles for cruisers. Where does that conversation stand?
The
right
battery
now?
mitigation devices, is that what you were?
No, just like EVs that were cruisers.
Oh, so I went to the Fleet Expo. It was hosted down in Louisiana 2 years ago. And myself and Lieutenant Howell, and I took a course on the EVs. Speaking to Chevy, because we were able to tour the different vehicles, Chevy had the most effective sized vehicle for a fleet vehicle for us. And I was quite taken with the vehicle. And when I told him where we were, he did not recommend it at all for us. He felt as a vehicle that would be what they call hot seated. So if you have let's say one of our gas vehicles is down, that EV has been driven for an entire shift, a 12-hour shift, comes in, it needs to charge. And then I'm no expert in it, but there's different charging levels. And so if you do think it's the quick charge, it actually reduces your battery life. So the longer charge, which I think was an 8-hour charge. So basically you're going to be charging your vehicle for 3/4 of a shift. You're effectively down that vehicle. He also said in the cold weather, it was not a wise vehicle for us. So we've been switching our fleet over to hybrids. We're actually moving away. We had an issue with our Explorers. We switched to Tahoes. We're finding that we're not the big fans of the Tahoes, and we're switching back to the Explorers, but the hybrid models. And
With APUs, or is that the APUs not part of the equation at this point? Auxiliary power unit, I think it was. Basically, so you could have the lights and everything on the cruiser, but the engine's actually shut off.
they do that.
They do that, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the time right at the end of dispatch where I look across to the dispatch leader and ask him, are we charging enough money for the other towns using our services?
The formula we're using, yes, sir, I do believe we're charging. Otherwise, if we added more on to their fees, they would look elsewhere for dispatch services. We're very comparable to Lebanon and Hanover, so I shouldn't say Lebanon, but Hanover.
Thank you.
There's not like an annual 1% or 2% that other dispatchers would apply.
We occasionally will up what they call the administrative fee for each town. I think right now we're charging 1.75 for administrative fees, which is roughly 15,000 for each community that we dispatch for. And then they pay the costs of what their annual call volume is. It's figured into the formula. Yeah.
But it's a moneymaker for the town.
Yeah.
Anybody online? Brandon? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
for very
Thank you.
thorough.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I don't know how she feels about it.
Paper.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ashley.
In order to allow for an update on the Hartford Police Department's outreach division, I move that the board go into executive session and discuss personnel matters, including the evaluation of employees pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A1.
Is there a second? Second by Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
I'll just bring them over there.
We are back. And would you like to
Yes.
move us in the direction
If I
that
may,
we're
if I
we're
may,
heading?
one detail, Mike Hoyt left our executive session
At 9:40.
at 9:40.
Thank you.
Then I move that the select board close executive session at 9:54 PM.
Second that.
Okay, so we have Ashley and then a second by Tim. No action was taken. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And move to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Eric,
Is
you
there
got
a
it.
second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Nothing to sign tonight?
I know.
Oh,
These
wow.